Nike just severed ties with one of tennis's biggest stars. Aryna Sabalenka, a two-time Grand Slam champion, saw her multi-million-dollar endorsement deal ripped away after a video went viral. A video where she allegedly insulted Coco Gauff, one of Nike's golden faces. What started as locker room banter exploded into a corporate nightmare, and now Sabalenka's career off the court hangs in the balance. Was this a misunderstanding blown out of proportion, or did Sabalenka cross a line that even championship titles couldn't save her from?
The conditions were terrible and she simply was better in these conditions than me. She won the match not because she played incredible, just because I made all of those mistakes from, like if you look from the outside, kind of like from an easy balls. If Iga would win me another day, I think she would go out today and she would get the win. It just, it just hurts. Honestly, it hurts.
It happened in the players' lounge after a tournament match. Someone's phone was recording. Nobody thought anything of it at first. Athletes joke, they vent, they talk trash when the cameras aren't supposed to be watching. But this time, someone was watching. And what Aryna Sabalenka said about Coco Gauff would ignite a firestorm that would cost her everything. The clip surfaced on Twitter late Thursday night. 15 seconds. That's all it took. Sabalenka, still in her practice gear, surrounded by a handful of other players, made comments about Gauff that immediately sent shockwaves through the tennis community. The exact words are disputed. Some claim she mocked Gauff's playing style, others say she questioned whether Gauff deserved the hype surrounding her career. A few sources suggest she made a personal jab about Gauff's off-court persona, the carefully curated image that Nike has spent millions building. Within 3 hours, the video had been viewed 2 million times. By morning, it was trending globally. Tennis Twitter erupted into factions. Gauff's fans mobilized instantly, flooding Sabalenka's comments with angry messages, calling for accountability, demanding consequences. Hashtags like Respect Gauff and Sabalenka is over climbed the trending charts. Sports journalists who normally cover match results suddenly found themselves analyzing 15 seconds of backstage footage frame by frame, trying to decipher intent from body language and tone. What made this explosion so immediate wasn't just what Sabalenka allegedly said, it was who she said it about. Coco Gauff isn't simply another talented player. She represents something larger in tennis culture. At just 20 years old, she's become the face of a new generation, someone who combines athletic excellence with social consciousness, someone who speaks about racial justice, mental health, and using her platform for change. Nike didn't just sponsor Gauff because she wins matches. They sponsored her because she embodies values that resonate with younger audiences, demographics that Nike desperately wants to capture as traditional sports viewership fragments across social platforms. And Sabalenka? She is brilliant on court, aggressive, powerful, a champion with multiple Grand Slam titles proving her dominance. But she's never been the media darling. She's never crafted the perfect soundbite or cultivated the image brands crave. She plays tennis, wins trophies, and largely avoids the off-court theatrics that generate headlines. That's precisely why this moment felt so explosive. It was the collision between two different approaches to modern athletic celebrity. Gauff, who understands that being a champion now requires mastering both the court and the camera. Sabalenka, who seemed to believe that winning should be enough. Tennis insiders immediately tried providing context. Some players privately messaged journalists claiming the video was edited, that crucial seconds before and after were deliberately removed to make Sabalenka look worse. Others suggested language barriers played a role. Sabalenka's English, while functional, sometimes produces phrasing that sounds harsher than intended. A few veterans whispered that this kind of competitive trash talk happens constantly in locker rooms, that publicizing private moments between athletes sets a dangerous precedent. But the internet doesn't care about context. The internet cares about narratives, and the narrative crystallizing in real time was simple. Sabalenka disrespected Gauff, Nike star got attacked, something had to be done. What happened next would prove that in modern sports, your corporate partnerships matter more than your championship trophies. Nike's headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon, doesn't usually convene emergency strategy sessions at midnight. But when your billion-dollar brand face gets publicly insulted by another athlete you sponsor, normal business hours go out the window. According to sources close to the situation, executives from Nike's athlete marketing division, legal team, and public relations departments gathered virtually within hours of the video going viral. Their mission? Damage control. Their problem? Both athletes involved wore Nike logos. This created a corporate nightmare scenario. Nike sponsors dozens of tennis players, investing millions in endorsement deals that tie the brand to athletic excellence. But not all sponsorships are created equal. Coco Gauff represents a strategic priority. She's the future, the athlete Nike has positioned at the center of campaigns about empowerment, diversity, and next-generation excellence. Her contract reportedly includes performance bonuses, but also clauses related to brand representation and social media influence. She's not just selling shoes, she's selling an ideology that Nike has spent decades cultivating. Sabalenka's deal, while substantial, never carried the same strategic weight. She was a performance athlete, someone whose results justified investment, but whose off-court value remained limited. She didn't drive the cultural conversations Nike wants to dominate. She didn't inspire viral moments that translate into brand loyalty among younger consumers. She won matches, and that mattered. But in a crisis where Nike had to choose between two sponsored athletes, the calculus was brutally simple. Within 24 hours, Nike issued its first statement. Carefully worded, it condemned disrespectful behavior between athletes without naming Sabalenka directly. The statement emphasized Nike's commitment to creating inclusive environments and supporting athletes who represent the company's values. To anyone paying attention, the message was clear. Nike was signaling which side they'd chosen before officially making a move. Behind the scenes, negotiations intensified. Nike's legal team reportedly reached out to Sabalenka's representatives with a proposal: issue a comprehensive public apology to Gauff, participate in a joint PR campaign emphasizing respect and sportsmanship, and commit to media training to prevent future incidents. In exchange, Nike would maintain the sponsorship deal, perhaps with reduced terms, but without the career-destroying termination that loomed as the alternative. Sabalenka's response shocked Nike's executives. She refused. According to multiple sources, she told her management team that she wouldn't apologize for words taken out of context, that she wouldn't participate in what she viewed as performative damage control, and that if Nike wanted to end the partnership over a misunderstood conversation, she'd rather walk away with her integrity intact than grovel for a contract. This defiance sealed her fate. Nike doesn't negotiate with athletes who refuse to play by corporate rules, especially when those athletes carry less strategic value than the person they're accused of insulting. 48 hours after the video went viral, Nike's official statement landed like a bomb across sports media. The company was terminating its endorsement agreement with Aryna Sabalenka, effective immediately, citing conduct incompatible with Nike's values and commitments to its athlete family. The announcement didn't mention Gauff by name. It didn't have to. Everyone understood exactly what this was about and who Nike had chosen to protect. But Sabalenka wasn't going to stay silent. Her response would divide the tennis world even further. Aryna Sabalenka waited 3 days before responding publicly. When she finally broke her silence, it wasn't through a carefully crafted PR statement approved by crisis management consultants. It was a raw, unfiltered Instagram post that would either salvage her reputation or destroy what remained of it. The post began with a simple declaration. She would not apologize for words she never said with malicious intent. She acknowledged the video's existence, but claimed it captured a moment of competitive banter between athletes, conversation that happens constantly in professional sports, but rarely gets filmed and never gets publicized without permission. She argued that stripping away the full context, who she was talking to, what was said before and after, the tone and relationship between everyone in that room, transformed harmless trash talk into something sinister. Then she addressed the elephant in the room: language barriers. English is Sabalenka's third language after Belarusian and Russian. She pointed out that phrases and tones that sound harsh in English translation often carry different connotations in her native languages, that operating in a linguistic environment where every word gets scrutinized creates impossible pressure, especially when 15-second clips get analyzed as definitive character evidence. She insisted she respects Gauff's talent and accomplishments, that her comments, whatever they actually were, reflected competitive spirit rather than personal animosity. But the most explosive part of her statement targeted Nike directly. She accused the company of prioritizing optics over truth, of sacrificing her career to protect their more valuable asset, of making her a scapegoat to signal corporate values rather than investigating what actually happened. The implication was clear. Nike's decision wasn't about right and wrong, it was about dollars and brand positioning. The response from the tennis community split along predictable lines. Players who'd felt constrained by sponsor demands and media expectations rallied behind Sabalenka, praising her authenticity and courage to push back against corporate overreach. Several athletes posted cryptic messages about "finally someone speaking truth" and "sponsors don't own us," creating a mini movement around athlete autonomy and the right to be imperfect humans rather than walking brand advertisements. But Gauff's supporters weren't buying it. They argued that Sabalenka's refusal to apologize proved she didn't understand why her words caused harm, that hiding behind language barriers and competitive culture excused behavior that perpetuated disrespect in women's sports. They pointed out that other non-native English speakers managed to communicate without insulting colleagues, that Sabalenka's defiance suggested arrogance rather than principle. The debate raged across tennis forums, podcasts, and social platforms, with no middle ground emerging between the two camps. Sabalenka's agent attempted damage control by arranging interviews where she could explain her position with more nuance, but major sports networks, wary of alienating Nike, one of their biggest advertisers, declined to provide platforms. Smaller outlets picked up the story, but that only reinforced the narrative that Sabalenka had been blacklisted by mainstream tennis media. She'd become radioactive, and everyone knew why. Meanwhile, the person at the center of the storm hadn't said a word publicly. Coco Gauff's silence was becoming its own story. Coco Gauff's social media presence usually buzzes with activity: training clips, sponsor content, personal reflections, interactions with fans. But in the week following Nike's termination of Sabalenka's contract, Gauff's accounts went eerily quiet. No statements about the controversy, no direct acknowledgement of the video, no comment on Nike's decision to cut ties with a fellow professional over comments allegedly directed at her. Then, 5 days after the termination announcement, Gauff posted, not a statement about Sabalenka, but a carefully crafted message about staying focused on what matters. She wrote about the importance of maintaining mental clarity amid distractions, about not letting external noise derail personal goals, about surrounding yourself with people who support your journey. She thanked her team, her family, and her sponsors for standing with her through challenges. The post never mentioned Sabalenka's name, never referenced the viral video, never addressed the corporate firestorm that had consumed tennis discourse for a week. But everyone knew what she was really saying, or thought they knew. That's the genius and the danger of strategic ambiguity. Gauff's post allowed supporters to read into it whatever narrative they preferred. Those defending her interpreted it as dignified restraint, refusing to engage with drama beneath her stature, taking the high road while others wallowed in controversy. Those sympathetic to Sabalenka saw calculated corporate messaging, a Nike-approved statement designed to maintain brand image while letting others fight her battles. Speculation intensified around what Gauff actually thought about Nike's decision. Had she privately pushed executives to terminate Sabalenka's contract, or was she uncomfortable being weaponized in a corporate power play? Sources close to Gauff's camp leaked conflicting information. Some claimed she never wanted Sabalenka fired, that she understood competitive athletes say things in heat of moment that don't reflect genuine malice. Others insisted Gauff felt genuinely hurt by the comments, that the video captured disrespect she'd endured quietly throughout her career from players who resented her rapid rise and lucrative sponsorships. Tennis insiders noted that Gauff's position was impossibly complicated. If she defended Sabalenka, she'd face backlash from fans who expected her to stand up against disrespect. If she condemned Sabalenka, she'd be criticized for destroying another woman's livelihood over words that might have been misunderstood. If she stayed silent, which she chose, she'd be accused of both cowardice and manipulation, depending on who was doing the accusing. Nike clearly preferred her silence. The company's messaging strategy relied on Gauff remaining above the fray, a victim protected by corporate responsibility, rather than an active participant in destroying a rival's endorsement deal. Any public statement from Gauff risked complicating that narrative. So she said nothing directly, posted cryptically, and let Nike's actions speak for her, while maintaining plausible distance from the consequences. But that silence was becoming its own problem. As days passed without direct comment, conspiracy theories flourished. Some accused Nike of muzzling Gauff to control the narrative. Others suggested Gauff was complicit in orchestrating Sabalenka's downfall, using corporate power to eliminate a rival. The truth, as always, was probably more complex and boring than either extreme. But complexity doesn't trend on social media. While Gauff stayed silent, financial analysts were calculating exactly how much Sabalenka's defiance had cost her. When Nike terminated Aryna Sabalenka's endorsement contract, they didn't just cut a check from their roster, they severed a financial lifeline worth approximately $8 to $12 million annually, depending on performance bonuses and appearance clauses. For context, that's more than many tennis players earn in total prize money across their entire careers. Sabalenka's on-court success had secured her financial future, but losing Nike's backing represented a catastrophic blow to her earning potential beyond tournament winnings. Endorsement deals in professional tennis operate on complex formulas, combining base payments, performance incentives, and appearance requirements. Nike's contracts typically include guaranteed minimums, money athletes receive regardless of results, plus bonuses triggered by Grand Slam performances, ranking milestones, and media engagement metrics. Sabalenka's deal reportedly included substantial performance bonuses, given her status as a multiple Grand Slam champion, meaning she'd been earning at the upper tier of Nike's tennis portfolio, outside the absolute superstars commanding deals worth tens of millions of dollars annually. But the financial damage extended far beyond Nike itself. Within 72 hours of the termination announcement, 2 additional sponsors quietly allowed their partnerships with Sabalenka to expire without renewal. A luxury watch brand removed her from their website's athlete ambassador section. A sports beverage company scrubbed social media content featuring her image. Neither issued public statements, but the message was unmistakable. Sabalenka had become toxic to brands wary of associating with controversy, especially controversy involving accusations of disrespecting another athlete from a marginalized background. Sports marketing analysts explained the calculus bluntly. Brands don't just buy athletic performance, they buy image, values alignment, and audience connection. Sabalenka's refusal to apologize, her confrontational response to Nike's demands, and the narrative positioning her as antagonist to Coco Gauff made her radioactive in the current sponsorship climate, where companies obsess over social media sentiment and viral backlash. Even brands that privately sympathized with her position couldn't risk the public relations nightmare of backing her against Nike and Gauff's combined star power. The contrast with Nike's treatment of Gauff was striker. Within a week of terminating Sabalenka's deal, Nike announced an expanded partnership with Gauff, including a new signature apparel line and increased presence in global marketing campaigns. The timing was deliberate, a clear signal to the market and to athletes about which behaviors get rewarded and which get punished. Nike was turning the controversy into a brand-building moment, positioning Gauff as someone they protect and elevate while demonstrating that crossing her, or the values she represents, carries severe consequences. Financial experts estimated Sabalenka's total annual income from endorsements dropped from approximately $15 million to perhaps $3 million, assuming she could secure smaller deals with brands willing to overlook the controversy. Her agents scrambled to position her as unfairly targeted, a victim of corporate overreach, hoping to attract sponsors who'd see value in backing someone willing to stand against what they'd frame as excessive Nike influence over professional tennis. But the market for controversial athlete with principled stance remains limited, especially in individual sports like tennis, where sponsor relationships determine whether careers thrive or merely survive. The numbers told one story, but the bigger question was what this meant for every athlete watching, calculating their own relationships with corporate power. The Sabalenka-Nike rupture sent shockwaves far beyond one terminated contract. It exposed fundamental tensions in modern professional sports between athletic performance, corporate sponsorship, and personal authenticity. Athletes across tennis and across all sports watched this situation unfold with growing unease, recognizing that what happened to Sabalenka could happen to anyone who miscalculates the boundaries of acceptable behavior in an era where every moment might be recorded and every word might be weaponized. The immediate question facing athletes: are we now held to impossible standards where single comments, even in private or semi-private settings, can destroy careers if they contradict sponsor messaging? Players who built reputations on competitive fire and unfiltered personalities suddenly found themselves reconsidering how they communicate with colleagues, what they say in locker rooms, how they navigate the increasingly blurred line between public and private behavior in a world where phones are always recording. Some veterans argued that Sabalenka's situation reflected justified consequences for disrespecting a fellow professional, that regardless of context or intent, her words caused harm, and Nike had every right to decide they couldn't support someone whose conduct contradicted their values. They pointed out that sponsors don't owe athletes unconditional backing, that endorsement deals inherently come with behavioral expectations, and that athletes who take corporate money must accept corporate oversight of their image. But others saw something more troubling, evidence that corporate power now determines not just who gets sponsored, but who gets silenced, that major brands wield influence over professional tennis that extends far beyond paying athletes to wear logos. They worried that Nike's decision to choose Gauff over Sabalenka based on strategic value rather than objective investigation of what actually happened sets a dangerous precedent where an athlete's worth gets measured not by championships, but by social media metrics and brand alignment. Nike clearly preferred her silence. The company's messaging strategy relied on Gauff remaining above the fray, a victim protected by corporate responsibility rather than an active participant in destroying a rival's endorsement deal. Any public statement from Gauff risked complicating that narrative. So she said nothing directly, posted cryptically, and let Nike's actions speak for her while maintaining plausible distance from the consequences. But that silence was becoming its own problem. As days passed without direct comment, conspiracy theories flourished. Some accused Nike of muzzling Gauff to control the narrative. Others suggested Gauff was complicit in orchestrating Sabalenka's downfall, using corporate power to eliminate a rival. The truth, as always, was probably more complex and boring than either extreme. But complexity doesn't trend on social media. While Gauff stayed silent, financial analysts